Stop me if this sounds familiar. You pull into the gas station, the price has jumped again, you curse, you fill up, and you go back to your day. Annoying, right? But manageable. That feeling, that annoying but manageable feeling, it's a trap, and it's going to cost you thousands of dollars over the next 6 months if you don't wake up to what's actually happening. The headlines are focused on one number, the price at the pump. But that number is a decoy. It's the smallest piece of a much larger puzzle that's about to hit your wallet not once, but 5 times. By the time you feel the last wave, the damage will already be done. Most Americans won't see any of it coming until it's too late. I'm going to walk you through exactly what's coming, why your brain is wired to ignore it, and what you can do right now to protect yourself while your window is still open. Let's start with what you can already see, gas prices. The national average has jumped from under $3 a month ago to nearly $4 today. In California, drivers are paying over $5.80 a gallon. And diesel, the fuel that powers the 18-wheelers delivering everything you buy, has surged 41.6% year over year to nearly $5.10 a gallon. The average household spends about $2,500 a year on fuel. An extra $10 or $15 a week doesn't sound catastrophic, so your brain files it under annoying but manageable and moves on. But psychologists call this mental accounting. We separate money into invisible buckets: gas, groceries, entertainment. When one bucket overflows, we don't calmly redistribute, we emotionally react. Dining out disappears, the gym membership gets canceled, the trip evaporates, and that investment contribution you promised to increase, it stays exactly where it is. The chief economist at the National Retail Federation confirmed this pattern. When gas spikes, the first casualties are experiences, restaurants, theme parks, movie theaters, not because they got more expensive, but because your survival instinct reclassified them as luxuries the moment a mandatory expense jumped. And that instinct is about to get a lot louder, because gas is just wave 1. Wave 2 is landing on grocery store shelves right now, specifically the perishables: produce, meat, dairy, the things that can't sit in a warehouse waiting for prices to stabilize. Diesel powers the refrigerated trucks that bring these items to your store. A 41.6% diesel spike means the cost of moving perishable food just went vertical. Retailers have been absorbing costs for the past year: tariffs, supply chain issues, labor costs. Their margins are paper thin. They have almost nothing left to cushion this second shock. One economics professor at Boston College warned that if oil prices stay elevated, you'll see a persistent cost shock that businesses simply can't eat anymore. And when they stop absorbing, the sticker price catches up fast. When your grocery bill jumps next week, that's wave 2. Wave 3 won't arrive for months, but it's already baked in: fertilizer. I know what you're thinking. I don't buy fertilizer. Yes, you do. You buy it in every loaf of bread, every ear of corn, every apple, every piece of fruit you put in your mouth. Fossil fuels account for up to 80% of fertilizer production costs. The countries directly impacted by this conflict, Iran, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, the UAE, are among the world's top fertilizer producers, and 1/3 of global fertilizer supply passes through the Strait of Hormuz, the same waterway that's been effectively shut down since February. The food you eat in September and October is getting more expensive right now because of inputs farmers are paying a premium for this month. You won't feel this until fall. By then, it'll be too late to prepare. Most people will have forgotten the seeds of that price shock were planted in March. Wave 4 is airfare. Jet fuel has surged roughly 85% since the conflict began on February 28th. Airlines don't operate like gas stations. They buy fuel months in advance and bake those costs into their pricing models. Major carriers have already announced fare hikes. And unlike gas, which can fall when oil drops, airfares don't come down fast. They're sticky. Once they go up, they take a long time to come back down. If you're planning a summer vacation, that flight you've been watching, it's about to hurt. And don't expect relief anytime soon, even if oil prices stabilize tomorrow. Wave 5 is the one almost nobody has connected: interest rates. Just last week, on March 18th, the Federal Reserve met and made a decision that should be front-page news. They kept rates unchanged for the second meeting in a row. 6 months ago, the Fed was expected to cut rates this year, lower mortgages, lower car loans, lower credit card payments. That expectation is now dead. The Fed's own projections now show only one rate cut in all of 2026, just a quarter point. And some analysts say even that won't happen until the fourth quarter, or possibly not until 2027. If inflation accelerates further, rates could actually go up. If you were planning to buy a home or refinance, the math just changed. If you're carrying credit card debt, your borrowing costs just got more expensive and will stay that way longer than anyone expected. One leading economist warned that when inflation shocks collide with global uncertainty, consumers don't just cut spending, they freeze. People delay cars, homes, renovations, not because they can't afford them today, but because they've lost confidence in what they can afford tomorrow. When millions of households freeze simultaneously, that collective pause could drag the whole economy down. So let me ask you, when you first heard about rising energy prices, how many of these 5 waves did your mind connect? 1? Maybe 2? You're completely normal, and that normality is exactly the problem. There's a phenomenon called anchoring bias. When you face a complex, multi-layered problem, your brain doesn't process every layer. It grabs the most visible data point and uses it as a stand-in for the whole situation. Right now, for most Americans, that anchor is the number on the gas station sign. 398, 420, 580. That number has become the proxy for the entire economic impact of this conflict. And because gas feels annoying but survivable, your internal threat assessment files the whole crisis under temporary inconvenience. Meanwhile, the International Energy Agency called this the greatest global energy security challenge in history. Not a moderate disruption, the greatest, with oil production across Kuwait, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE dropping by at least 10 million barrels per day, the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. And your anchoring bias is whispering, "We'll manage." This is exactly what happened in 2022 after Russia invaded Ukraine. Gas spiked, people grumbled, then the shock bled into groceries, rent, everything. Inflation hit 9%. By the time most people grasped the full scope, the damage to their purchasing power was already done. You're not irrational. You're running the same mental software as everyone else. Recognizing that software is the first step toward overriding it. Now let's talk about what's keeping people up at night: your investments. Since February 28th, the S&P 500 has dropped nearly 7% from its January peak. The Nasdaq has dipped into correction territory. The Russell 2000, smaller companies sensitive to interest rates, is officially down more than 10%. Brent crude surged to nearly $120 a barrel before settling at $103 today. Even gold has been volatile. When you absorb all of that at once, your amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for threat detection, starts screaming one word: sell, get out, protect what's left. This is loss aversion. Research from Princeton shows the psychological pain of losing money is roughly twice as intense as the pleasure of gaining the same amount. A $5,000 loss doesn't feel like a $5,000 problem. It feels like a $10,000 emergency. Not because you're bad at math, because your nervous system evolved in an environment where losses could be fatal. That wiring hasn't updated for 401ks. But here's what actually happens when people act on that impulse. Analysts studied 40 major geopolitical events over 85 years. The average loss in the first month, less than 1%, followed by a 3.4% gain over the next 6 months.
The pattern is consistent. The people who sold in panic locked in their losses. The people who held through the turbulence captured the recovery. During the March 2020 crash, 57 days later, the market was back. Then it kept climbing. Many who panic sold at the bottom never got back in. They sat on the sidelines waiting for certainty that never came, while the recovery happened without them. You cannot capture the upside if you fled during the downside. All right, deep breath. Here's your 4-step action plan. Step 1. Do not panic sell. Moving to cash doesn't eliminate risk. It replaces market risk with inflation risk and opportunity cost. There is no risk-free option. Even being too conservative is a risk because you can outlive your money. Step 2. Pressure test your emergency fund. Financial advisors recommend 6 to 12 months of expenses in something accessible. Top high-yield accounts are still paying over 4%. If your cushion is thin, build it now, not because the worst case is guaranteed, but because the psychological security of knowing you can absorb a shock is the most underrated financial tool there is. When you have runway, you don't make panicked decisions. Step 3. Audit your spending before the next waves arrive. Gas is here, groceries are coming, airfare is coming, interest rates are staying high. If you wait until all 5 waves have landed to adjust, you'll be scrambling reactively. Cut discretionary spending now and redirect those dollars to your financial cushion. And step 4. Keep investing on a regular schedule. This feels counterintuitive. Your gut says stop throwing money into a falling market, but decades of evidence show the opposite. When you invest a fixed amount every month, you automatically buy more shares when prices are low and fewer shares when prices are high. The volatility that feels terrifying right now is quietly lowering your average cost per share. This is dollar cost averaging, and it works because of the chaos, not despite it. Years from now, the shares you buy during this conflict will likely be some of the best investments you ever made. Here's what separates people who come through periods like this financially intact from those who don't. It's not being smarter, it's not having more money, it's response time. Research on past economic shocks, 1973, 2008, 2020, 2022, reveals a consistent pattern. The households that fared best weren't the ones with the highest incomes. They were the ones who adjusted earliest, who recognized the signals before the full impact arrived and made small, unglamorous moves, trimming discretionary spending, fortifying savings, maintaining investment contributions, reducing high-interest debt. None of these moves are dramatic, but compounded over the 6 to 12 months an economic disruption takes to cycle through the system, those early adjustments create an enormous gap. Right now, you're watching this video. You're thinking about your money. Most people won't think about any of this until the 4th or 5th wave has already hit their bank account. By then, the window for proactive adjustment is closed. Your window is open right now. You're not irrational for feeling anxious. That anxiety is the correct signal. It means you're paying attention. The mistake isn't feeling the fear. The mistake is letting the fear choose for you. The right response is quieter. Review your budget, check your emergency fund, continue your regular investments, map your energy exposure. And once you've taken those steps, give yourself permission to stop doom scrolling the financial news. The headlines are designed to amplify fear, not inform action. You've already taken the action. You don't need the fear. You've navigated uncertainty before. You'll navigate this one too. The only question is whether you'll let the disruption make your decisions for you or whether you'll make them yourself.
Here's what I want you to do right now. Take 1 hour this weekend. Open your banking app, check your emergency fund, and identify one subscription or expense you can cut to redirect that money to your savings. That's it. Start there. Drop a comment below and tell me what move you're making first. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. This story isn't over, and neither is your window to get ahead of it. I'll see you in the next video.